Hey everyone, welcome back. Welcome to the Letters and Layers podcast, your award-winning podcast for all things mental health, wellness, life lessons, streams of consciousness, and everything in between. This is your host, Amaka. It is Friday morning, February 13th, when I am recording. I wanted to prioritize this and make sure I get it done before the day gets away from me. I have a pretty light morning as far as work, so this was as good a time as any to record. I am going to the opera tonight with my husband for a date, so I'm excited about that. And this weekend for me will be a little bit busy. My good friend is getting married, and in Igbo tradition, there is this ceremony called the introduction, where it's kind of like her fiance has already asked her to marry her, but now it's like almost like officially the families are meeting. And there's usually a couple of steps in the whole like Igbo traditional marriage process. You can choose to partake, you can choose to do it however you want. My friend's parents are more traditional, so they are partaking. So she invited me, and I'll be going to that tomorrow. I have my retie on Sunday for my hair, and then I have my baby shower in about a week or so. So also getting ready for that with the help of some amazing friends. And yeah, can't really complain. Honestly, just trying to keep up with work and life. Can often feel like the to-do list is a mile long, but I always invoke my mantra that everything will get done. Time frame, who knows when, but everything will get done. So things are going pretty well. I am 33 weeks on Saturday, February 14th. So we're slowly getting to full term. I feel like for me, when the baby is here, it'll feel like the pregnancy just was a blink of an eye. It does not feel that way in the moment. It doesn't feel that way when I am willing myself to get out of bed. It doesn't feel that way when I am going to the bathroom at night for the second time. Although, honestly, as far as nighttime bathroom visits go, 2 times a night isn't really that bad. And that's kind of what I'm averaging right now. That might be TMI, but no big deal. Yeah, so overall, I can't complain. And I am almost done with Matriarch. So I'm super excited for that. I appreciate this podcast being a source of accountability for me. And having done part 1 of my reaction to the book, the first half, part 1 and some of part 2, I promised that I would finish the book and be ready to talk about part 2 for the March 1st episode. So I have been plowing through the book during my downtime. What I have realized for myself is if I don't read first thing in the morning, I probably won't read for that day. So that's when I've been getting most of my reading done. The book is usually on my nightstand. Once I wake up, I pick it up. I just continue from where I left off. And it's the type of book that kind of carries you through the story. I talked about this, I think, on the 107 Days episode, that sometimes you have to kind of work through finishing books because they might drag, it might not be as interesting. It might not captivate you, but you don't want to abandon it. Matriarch does a pretty good job with kind of not making you work too hard. It kind of carries you through the story. It's very interesting. I'm at the point where Beyonce and Destiny's Child are very much a household name, and we're pretty much just getting all the behind the scenes of Miss Tina Knowles' role and pretty much how foundational she was to their success. So I'm going to finish the last 90 or so pages, and we will talk about it on March 1st. So very excited about that. And why I say that this podcast is a source of accountability for me, amongst other things, is because every once in a while, a listener reaches out. And about a month ago, a listener reached out to me with such a loving and encouraging email. And I asked her if I could shout her out on the episode today. And she said she was okay with this. So I'm shouting out Allison from North Carolina, I believe. And yeah, I remember getting her email on the train. I was heading back to New York for my flight back to Chicago when I went on my work trip last month. I remember being on the Metro North. We were approaching Grand Central and I saw her email, and it just lifted me up so much because this podcast has continued. I have been able to continue it for many reasons. You know, you have to know your why, and my personal why has kept me going. But it's always great to hear from people that are listening to you. Sometimes it feels like you're talking into a void, which honestly, I don't mind for the most part. I love to kind of have this space as an outlet, whether people are listening or not. But this email was a reminder that there are folks tuning in. So it kind of gave me a reminder, an important and timely reminder that I need to keep my promises with what I say I'm going to do with the podcast. And, you know, that includes book recaps if I say I'm going to do them, you know, specific topics and everything. And if there are any folks that are listening right now that would like me to talk about a particular topic or a book that you would like me to consider, don't hesitate to reach out. I always give the way to contact me at the end of the episode and in the podcast episode description. So don't be shy. I'm always happy to hear from listeners. So I wanted to share her email. I think it gives me a glimpse into one kind of listener who is, you know, tuning into the podcast, and it gives me an idea of what they're getting from it, and it's very encouraging to me and motivates me to continue. So her name is Allison. She says, I'm 21 years old and starting nursing school this upcoming May. I have hopes of becoming a nurse midwife. I have a few nurse midwife friends. They're amazing. And living in Chicago one day as well. I've been listening to your podcast for the past few months, and I wanted to reach out and tell you how inspirational it is to hear your words and how thoughtfully you craft what you share. I absolutely love that you are continuing to pursue your dreams as you prepare to welcome your baby. Aww. It gives me hope as I pursue my goals and passions at full throttle, while also dreaming of a family in mid to late 30s. I'm grateful to have such an amazing example of what my life could look like. Thank you for affirming yourself so eloquently as you share your future goals. I hope to one day be as grounded in confidence, grace, and knowledge as you are. I know your patients are lucky to have someone like you in their corner. I wish you all the best in opening your own practice. Thank you for sharing your life on your platform. I wish you the best of luck in your last trimester and as you welcome your sweet babe into the world. Reading this email again. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Allison. If you're listening, and I very much appreciate this kind note that you sent to me. As a token of my appreciation, I sent Allison a tote bag with the Letters and Layers cover art on it. So I hope you enjoy the goodies that are inside. And yes, if folks are out there listening and want to reach out to me, have thoughts, want to connect, don't hesitate. I love hearing from y'all. Thank you for the encouragement, and thank you for the motivation to keep going. It's funny sometimes because when you're living your own life and you're talking about it, it doesn't feel like anything extraordinary is happening. Sometimes you question whether it's worth sharing what's going on in your life because you're like, why would people care? How would this impact folks? Why does it even matter to talk about it? But I've really tried over this podcast journey to quiet that voice and not be the one to tell myself no about sharing something, unless I feel pretty strongly that I should kind of let it stay personal. I really just, even like the most mundane details of life, you never know how people are internalizing that information and how they relate to it based on the context of their life. So never assume that what you have to say doesn't matter. Never assume that what you have to share is irrelevant. If it's coming from a really genuine place, someone out there is bound to resonate with it. So thank you, Allison, for the kind words. I appreciate you so much. So like I said, we'll continue with Matriarch on March 1st. But a couple weeks ago, I was just thinking about how a lot of people have a hard time with sleeping. As you can see from the title of this episode, I felt moved enough to devote a whole episode to this because, I have, for the most part, I'm a decent sleeper, but I do have periods where maybe I struggle a little bit more. I might be waking up more frequently during the night. That's definitely the case now, but I'm not being too hard on myself considering my current condition. But separate from that, I just wanted to share some insights I feel like I've collected over some years that I find has helped me with sleep. Things that I've shared with people, things that people have shared with me that can help with getting better sleep. Some of them are just lifestyle changes. Some of them are product based. All of them can play a role. You don't have to employ all of these tools. You may have to kind of figure out what works best with some trial and error. But if you are struggling with sleep and you're not sure why, this episode might be helpful. So I'll start with the lifestyle changes first, and then we'll shift to product-based strategies. So some of this stuff I've actually talked about on the podcast already, but I think it might be helpful to just aggregate everything into one place. So lifestyle changes. I would say take an inventory on what you eat and how many grams of sugar you're taking in a day, and how much grams of added sugar you're taking in a day. I have noticed that when I am more cognizant of that, I do have better quality sleep. A lot of things that we don't think would have sugar in it, added sugar does have sugar in it. And when I say added sugar, I mean sugar that is introduced into the food that does not naturally develop from the food. So this is like finding sugar in ketchup and other condiments, finding added sugar in bread, added sugar in cereals, pastries, what have you. And it's really, even like, I'm a fan of non-dairy milk, particularly soy milk. And Right now, I'm only drinking soy milk from Trader Joe's because that's the only place I can find organic soy milk without added sugar. Whole Foods has it too, but I prefer the Trader Joe's brand. So, just to give you an example of how seemingly innocuous of a product and healthy soy milk is, reputation wise, depending on who you ask. But I've been a fan of soy milk for a while. And that can have added sugar. So even things that are supposed to be healthy, that are known to be healthy, a lot of yogurts, your Chobanis, all those, the Greek yogurts, the ones especially with like the fruits inside and the flavoring, check the nutrition label. Sometimes those things have double digits worth of added sugar as far as grams go. And you'll be surprised. There was this protein shake that I was drinking a lot last year that I really liked. And I stopped because each individual serving size carton had 4 grams of added sugar in it. And I would drink 2, sometimes 3 a day. So that's like 12 grams of added sugar in a day from protein shakes. So I stopped. I really liked them. They had a good amount of fiber. I think they had like 4 or 5 grams of fiber in each carton and like 20 grams of protein. But because of the sugar, I was like, let me take a beat on these. So I say that to say, even foods that are known and are trusted to be healthy, just taking a quick look at the nutrition label, seeing if it has added sugar could inform like whether you take a break from that product or that food, or you stop eating it altogether. You'll be surprised how much added sugar you cut out of your diet. And it might not be something that happens right away, but you might find you start to sleep better. So sugar intake, water. I've talked about water I actually talked about water not too long ago, that we are chronically dehydrated. And I wonder how many people, instead of brewing a cup of coffee in the morning, if they literally just chugged a 30 ounce of water, how they would feel. Kind of switching to that so drastically probably wouldn't feel great. But over time, your body would probably feel better after you got through like that whole withdrawal period and stuff, because caffeine is a drug in its own right. So yeah, amongst all of the other amazing benefits of water, I notice sometimes for me, if I'm having trouble sleeping, if I go to the kitchen and get a mason jar worth of water, at least 20 ounces, and drink that, sometimes more, I start to get sleepy and I fall asleep, because I feel like there are a lot more bodily functions that require water than we're aware of or that we think about. And sleep, I would say, is definitely one of them. So being more cognizant of your added sugar, taking in more water. I know it's annoying, especially if you're like drinking water at night. You're like, well, I'm trying to get better sleep, but I'm waking up to pee. What I try to do as far as my water intake is, for me, since I'm a bigger person, I need optimally, I need 90 to 100 ounces a day. Do I get that every day? No. But that's optimal for me. So what works is, as soon as I wake up, I chug 30 ounces. If I'm like really on it, as soon as I wake up, I chug 30 ounces. And then I try to give myself a deadline for the day. Like, let me make sure I hit my goal by 5 or 6 p.m. so that I have the evening to go to the bathroom, whether it's a couple of times, and then for the most part, I can just go to bed, and maybe I wake up once to go to the bathroom, but it won't be like multiple times. So that's kind of how I manage that. And then another thing that's non-product based is room temp. It's usually recommended to Make sure your sleeping space is on the cooler side. And everyone is different. My husband personally prefers the room to be hot. So we usually have to find a compromise on that. And usually I win out, especially now. I like a colder room. And that's what a lot of the research encourages, to have your temperature be on the cooler side, low to mid 60s, maybe high 60s. And that's supposed to kind of help your body power down in a way and get ready for sleep. I know that works for me. So see what your room temp is. See if you dropped your temp down a couple of degrees, would that help to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable and ready for sleep? My last non-product based recommendation is physical activity. I left that last because I feel like mentioning exercise and walking, people might roll their eyes, but when I am on it with my steps, especially, I'm a believer, everyone may not agree, but I'm a believer that there's a difference between treadmill walking and outside walking. And I'm specifically talking about outside walking, which I know can be tougher when the weather is cold and it's dark. But if you can make it a habit to just get more outside steps. I honestly, when I started walking more consistently, I was amazed at how good I felt physically, how good I felt mentally, and how much better I was sleeping. You don't have to get 10,000 steps a day, but if you can at least double the steps you're getting presently, we're in February, depending on where you are in the country, it might be a little harder to get outside walks. I personally don't mind cold weather walks as long as it's not below freezing. As long as I dress pretty warm, within a few minutes of being outside, I'm warmed up and I can walk for however long I plan to. But it could make a world of a difference for sleep. Just because you're a little bit more exhausted at the end of the day because you exerted more energy, but it was like a good energy exertion. And, you're working your muscles, the blood is pumping. It can only promote better sleep. So like I said, I left that last because I feel like people talk about physical activity so much so that it's a cliche now. And I feel like people's ears just kind of don't really receive it, but it's just as important as all the other ones that I've mentioned. So just to recap, sugar intake, particularly added sugar, checking in on that, seeing how much you are consuming in a day and reducing it as much as you can. Water intake, increasing that if you already know that you're dehydrated, that can help with sleep. Room temperature, seeing if you dial down your room temp a little bit, because research has shown that colder rooms can promote better sleep. And then more physical activity, walking particularly. You don't have to do anything too strenuous or taxing. Just putting one foot in front of the other for a dedicated amount of time. Ideally, trying to incorporate walking just more in your life. What I like to do when the weather is pretty decent is maybe instead of driving to Trader Joe's, I will take the train so that I can get the steps, or, just whatever I can access via public transport. I try to do that when, the weather is decent versus automatically just getting in my car. And if you just make that decision, it definitely depends on where you live. I live in a walkable city. Not everyone does. But however you can incorporate more steps in your life will only improve its quality. Okay, so product-based things that have helped me with sleep. I am the type of person that to fall asleep, sometimes it helps to feel a little bit of pressure on my body. So this is where a weighted blanket comes in, and this is where a weighted face mask comes in. I don't always use a weighted blanket. Right now, my weighted blanket is folded in the room. I haven't used it in at least 6 weeks, but I use my weighted mask more frequently. I bought a Sharper Image weighted mask off of the Macy's website last year, and it has been really helpful during nights where maybe I'm struggling a little bit and I'm like, I could probably use a little bit of pressure on my face. And usually it works. It works pretty well. You know, you have your like regular eye mask that you just put on your face to block out light, but sometimes just having the weight of those little beads just pushing down, I don't know what it is. There must be something, not hormonal, I don't think that's the right word, but maybe just something in the body that's stimulated from that pressure that promotes falling asleep. And sometimes I use the weighted blanket, like I said. Not all the time. I don't feel like I need it all the time. Sometimes I may put the weighted blanket on my feet because I've noticed too, I don't know if I'm weird, but sometimes having pressure on my feet helps me to fall asleep. So that's where the weighted blanket might come in. But I definitely use the weighted face mask a few days a week at the least. And then, like I said, weighted blanket. White noise I use sometimes. That's more rare though. But some people really benefit from using white noise for sleep. Sleep Stories from Calm, particularly. I like that app, but there are a myriad of apps similar to them. I don't know if they offer Sleep Stories in their free tier. That might be something that is paid, but you could probably find Sleep Stories on YouTube as well, honestly. So those have been helpful for me. And anecdotally, and I think some research too has shown that magnesium deficiency can contribute to insomnia. So this is a mini PSA to get your levels checked. I've talked about labs and levels and how they affect mental health on a past podcast episode, but it is relevant in this case as far as the sleep discussion goes. So just get your levels checked if you haven't within the last 12 months. And most people are deficient in magnesium anyway. So it probably, even if you didn't get your levels checked, it probably wouldn't hurt to just bring a magnesium supplement on board. I know there are a lot of different types. And usually the go-to, if I remember correctly, is magnesium glycinate. But you can do your research online and confirm, or, you know, maybe it's another formulation. But it's always helpful to just see what your levels look like. Maybe you're deficient in more than one thing, and kind of addressing those deficiencies can improve your sleep as well. So just to recap, product-based tools to help with sleep: the weighted blanket, the weighted mask, the white noise, Sleep Stories, and magnesium particularly, but general PSA to get your levels checked. Yeah, and that's it. That's all I have for this podcast episode. I appreciate you guys listening. If there are sleep strategies that you employ in your life and you want to share them with me, don't hesitate. Contact at thelettersandlayers.com. I'd be happy to share them on the podcast with our listeners. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at thelettersandlayerspod. Like I said, we will be continuing Matriarch on the March 1st episode. I think I'm going to try and talk about it in that episode and not go into a part 3. I think I can do it. It might be a longer episode, but I like to keep book recaps at 2 parts if I can. So we'll see. But Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you as always. Reach out to me if you are so moved to. And thank you for your support. I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.